Our next presenter is Celena Evans. Celena has 20 years experience in engineering, marketing, product, and project management roles in small divisions of several well-known corporations, including Kimberly-Clark, Genuine Parts, and Lennox International. During her corporate tenure, she realized that she has tremendous passion for working in a consultative manner with businesses to solve unique problems, optimize processes, and bring new opportunities to fruition. To build on that passion, she started Meliora Consulting in 2017, and her talk today is on act like a marketer and think like an engineer. So I'm going to turn the controls over to Celena.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for listening in today. All right, I'm sure you're eager to know the story behind the title of my talk, Act Like a Marketer, Think Like an Engineer. The talk is inspired by comedian Steve Harvey's best-selling book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. If any of you have seen that or read the book or happen to track Steve Harvey on TV. The movie features 4 women who seem to have it all, but can't succeed in one area of their lives, and that's their relationships with men. You might be thinking, well, what does this book have to do with marketing? The answer is it actually has a lot to do with marketing, and I'll tell you why. Have you ever felt as a marketer that you could not succeed in your relationship with a key stakeholder? I know for me, over the course of my career, the stakeholder that my teams often had difficulty with, but we had to work most closely with, was engineering. There's many articles on the web. I had fun looking at some of them about the conflict between engineering and marketing. My experience in B2B product-focused companies is that engineering is more often viewed as in charge than marketing is. In those companies, marketing is sometimes viewed as an afterthought, and marketers often didn't have a seat at the business table. I remember one environment I was in, we sat in the second tier against the wall. I still cringe when I think of situations where essentially all decisions have been made and then a stakeholder comes into a marketing person and asks, can you help us make this pretty? This disconnect results in various forms of tension and oftentimes a sentiment of good versus evil, hence the 2 ducks that I have in this image here. And having a little trouble navigating here. We as marketers are very proud of our work and the magic we make happen through creativity and critical thinking. But oftentimes engineers see our work as just that, magic, or more plainly, fluff. They don't believe there's any substance behind our work because they typically don't see all that goes into it. One example that I recently experienced is I asked a friend for input on a tagline that I had pondering for a few days. The response I got was, I question your talent as a marketer if you can't come up with a simple tagline. So I asked that friend, do you really think that marketers simply go into a room and brainstorm for 30 minutes to come up with this stuff? I didn't get an answer, but the silence indicated that his answer was yes. That really led me to believe and reminded me of the fact that we need to get engineers and the rest of business leaderships on board with the value of the magic that marketing brings. So let's talk about how we can begin to make that happen. Companies typically employ one of 3 strategies. You probably all know this. It's either customer-focused, operational excellence, or product leadership. In a company focused on product leadership, the organization strives for product differentiation in order to have the best products, a breadth of products, widespread availability, and speed to market. When you think about those words I just mentioned, innovation, product differentiation, it becomes apparent how a product-focused company could really lean on engineering to take a leadership position in the organization instead of marketing. But we as marketers know that product leadership requires marketing leadership. That's what marketing is all about. Marketing is such a rich function, and there is a place in marketing for analysis and creativity. More than a decade ago, I came across the book, A Class with Drucker. It was written by Peter Drucker, who many consider to be the world's greatest thinker on management. In that book, one statement stood out in my mind and made a lasting impression that solidified what I really believed during my experience as a marketer. And he said, the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well that the product or service fits him and sells itself. So the challenge is how to get engineering, as well as other business leaders, to see that value in marketing. Oops, One interesting fact about me, which Janelle alluded to or mentioned in my introduction, is that I started my career as an engineer. And then after going to business school, I transitioned into marketing. So I'm able to understand both perspectives and the needs of both engineers and marketers. My first marketing role was with a company that produced some of the world's top business to consumer brands. It was actually Kimberly-Clark. I was fortunate to have worked at this company because it gave me great perspective on what marketing should be. In that particular company, marketing was at the center of everything, and it was clear who was in charge, and that was marketing. By in charge, I mean that the most successful companies position marketing at the center of it all, just like the bullseye you see on the screen. A marketer's job is at the core to strike a balance between understanding the customer needs, the company capabilities, and understanding the competitive environment. After leaving Kimberly-Clark, my challenge was, how could I replicate this high regard for marketing in these B2B product-focused companies that I found myself in? So as I progressed in my marketing leadership roles, I decided to actively work to change the perception of marketing in the organizations where I work. And by considering how to think like an engineer, something that I used to be, I realized that we as marketers can make what appears like magic make sense to them. We can gain their buy-in and earn our seat at the table. When we think about what we as marketers can do to get engineers and the rest of business leadership on board with the value that we bring, the answer is we need to think like engineers. Let me break it down for you a little bit more. Engineers are often viewed as thinking in black and white. What they want is very simple. What they need from us is, number one, data. Number two, logic. Number three, they need to see plans. Number four, they love to test. And number five, they need metrics. If we can provide these things to engineers, we can establish successful working relationships and increase credibility for marketing, earning our seat at the business table. Oh, jumped ahead there. Now let's talk about a little bit more about what it's like to think like an engineer. First, we have to acknowledge that engineers are trained to think logically. There is a generally accepted engineering process, and that process begins with identifying a problem or a need. Engineering is about creating a system that fulfills certain requirements. So the most important question an engineer must know is, what are the requirements? After they define the requirements and constraints, then they brainstorm, then they evaluate solutions, they design and build, evaluate and test prototypes, and finally, one thing that engineers are really good at is documenting the results and then communicating. People who aren't engineers tend to jump to thinking about solutions before they have clearly defined the requirements, and this causes them to forget or miss things that the system needs to do. Many of the talented marketers I have worked with realistically don't fall into that category of jumping into solutions. And in fact, you're probably seeing many parallels between the engineering process and a marketing process. The problem that I found is that marketers often don't communicate the work we do along the way to getting our results in as structured a manner that would resonate with engineers or some other business leaders. If we don't engage and communicate with engineers throughout the process, they will think we jump to solutions, which is why they may think that we wave a magic wand to get results. When you compare the engineering process, oops, the slides keep moving forward, to a marketing process, you can easily see there's many similarities in how each of our groups operate and think. Just like engineers, marketers seek and leverage data to make decisions. We regularly seek to understand market problems through various surveys, focus groups, customer satisfaction scores, depth interviews, and on and on and on. We regularly analyze sales reports for trends, and we readily track key industry indicators and dissect industry reports. We also utilize logic to define product or campaign requirements, and all of those requirements are rooted in understanding of customer needs. If a customer values on-time delivery, then we'll be sure to incorporate that into our future product developments, or we'll tout that in our marketing materials and campaigns. Next is that marketers are excellent planners. There are many moving parts to making our magic happen. For example, when launching a campaign, there are many components that have to happen in sequence, and some happen at the same time. There are outputs from activities that may serve as critical inputs to another. Sometimes these inputs determine timing for moving on to the next step or even result in a go, no-go decision. Marketers test our concepts against any and all of the 4 Ps, and we use more market research techniques throughout the process. We do test marketing, we seek input from our sales teams, and we use various analytical tools to predict outcomes from our efforts before launching a product or campaign. And finally, we have all kinds of metrics that we use to track results. At the end of the day, the challenge is that we simply need to communicate all of these things to engineers. We need to regularly engage them at key points along the way. For example, invite them to sit in on our focus groups, share our marketing plans, provide regular reports and progress on our marketing efforts. And in particular, in a B2B product environment, sometimes we need to simply de-emphasize the beauty or the creativity of our work and really just focus in on the numbers, which is what really gets their attention. If you think of the saying, show me the money, that's what engineers want. They want us to show them the data. And engineers and other business leaders, our GMs, our finance leaders, our operations leaders, believe what they can see and measure. Data, logic, plans, tests, and metrics are what will win them over time and time again. When we apply these principles, act like a marketer, think like an engineer, we will quickly gain allies among engineers and other business leaders. We will become part of their team, special and stand out as marketers. Most importantly, we will succeed in earning our special position at the center of it all and our seat at the table in product-focused environments. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Celena.
I'm going to turn it back over to Anel now.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. That was great. It's nice to hear ways of earning your seat at the table for sure, as I know it's always a challenge for marketers. It's getting better, of course, but it's still a challenge. So here's Celena's contact information. Feel free to reach out to her with any questions that you might have.